who we fear most at the next general election, Keir or Andy B? It's a very hypothetical question, and you know that. Keir Starmer will not be leader of the Labour Party at the next election. In fact, he might not even last the next year.
British politics is in turmoil. At the moment, we are in something of a watershed. The party system as we have known it for over a century is breaking up. New parties have been formed, older ones are receiving unexpected boosts, and the political landscape is undergoing seismic change. What we are witnessing in British politics is quite frankly historic. For most of the last century, Labour and the Conservatives dominated the political landscape. Together, they commanded between 75 and 90% of the national vote, decade after decade. To illustrate this, the 1951 general election saw Labour and the Conservatives capture an astonishing 96.8% of the vote combined. Even in the modern era, their dominance remains strong. In 1997, at the height of Tony Blair's landslide victory, Labour and the Conservatives still managed to combine 73.9%. As recently as 2017, their joint share climbed back up to 82.4%. However, the sharp decline since 2019, and especially the current polling that shows them barely at 40% combined, marks a historic low and a major realignment in UK politics. The two-party system that defined British life for generations is breaking apart before our eyes. Politics in the UK is changing, and it is clearly no longer a two-horse race. The traditional duopoly has fractured, and voters are spreading their support across a wider range of parties than at any point in living memory. So Keir Starmer's party is currently on 20% of the vote, the lowest level since last year's general election, and just 3 points ahead of the Conservatives on 17% of the vote. That direct fact alone tells a story of decline that goes well beyond normal midterm blues. This dramatic drop has sparked a question that seemed unthinkable just over a year ago. Is Sir Keir Starmer about to be shown the door from his office as Prime Minister? The fact that the media and the public are seriously having this conversation just 14 months after a historic election victory shows that something has gone very badly wrong. It is not just an isolated scandal or a temporary dip in popularity. It reveals a deeper shift. When a Prime Minister's future is being so openly discussed this soon into their tenure, it speaks to the collapse of authority and the fragility of the mandate. It shows a party that is not confident in its own leadership and a public that has lost faith far faster than anyone imagined. This didn't happen overnight. The signs were there before. Frustration simmered in Westminster. Angela Rayner's tax affairs cast a long shadow, followed by controversy over Peter Mandelson's links to Jeffrey Epstein. Then the resignation of a key aide and persistent questions about Sue Gray's replacement, Morgan McSweeney. Over the last month, each event may have looked containable in isolation, but together they have painted a picture of chaos and weakness at the heart of government. As a result, people are now openly discussing Sir Keir Starmer's future. Andy Burnham's name is consistently coming up as the man who could replace Starmer. That is extraordinary for two reasons. First, Burnham isn't even in Parliament. He is the Mayor of Greater Manchester. Second, the fact that Labour MPs are looking outside of Parliament for a saviour underlines just how thin the bench looks right now. The traditional pool of talent has dried up, and Labour seems to lack an obvious successor. Take a look at the different takes from news outlets across the political spectrum, from left-leaning publications to right-leaning ones. All of them are now speculating about Starmer's future and floating Andy Burnham's name as a potential successor.
Accused of lying to Parliament, and now he's got Andy Burnham, everyone's favourite good-looking Labourite, nipping at his heels.
Well, Andy Burnham, for instance, is one of the only Labour figures to have a positive favourability rating amongst people in the country.
Could Andy Burnham do a better job?
Yeah, I think he can. I think he let me down in 2015, I can't lie. I was hoping for better. I've always been a champion of Andy Burnham. He's got himself some power in Greater Manchester. He's done amazing things looking at technical education and the fact that we have a skills shortage. He's invested in things like housing first, tackling homelessness.
Done a good job on
Transport is another one.
Will Labour do it?
It's not whether Labour will do it. I think lots of Labour MPs would like it. My message to the Labour Party is absolutely clear. You either find a way for Andy Burnham to get in and give yourself half a chance of winning the next election, or you'll get battered and usher in a very dangerous right-wing government.
Could Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham be the next Prime Minister? He's bid for the Labour leadership twice and lost. But senior Labour figures are increasingly favourable about Andy Burnham, who George Eaton referred to as the king over the water in a recent piece. Tell us what you found.
In every party, there's often a king over the water. Under David Cameron, when he was Prime Minister, it was Boris Johnson, popular as Mayor of London, amongst both party members and voters, and who would regularly dissent on matters of national policy and stray well beyond his brief. Under Labour, it's Andy Burnham who's filling this role. YouGov polling suggests he's the only senior Labour figure who's actually has a positive rating amongst voters, plus 7, and he's the public's preferred choice to succeed Starmer.
There are rumours that Burnham could seek a parliamentary seat via a by-election, but that comes with extraordinary risk. Reform UK is polling very well and would certainly fancy their chances of making an upset in a by-election. Imagine the optics. The man viewed by some as Labour's next leader stumbling at the very first hurdle. A by-election that results in defeat would not only sink Burnham, but further destabilise Labour's position. The fact that Andy Burnham's name keeps coming up despite the hurdles, despite the risks, despite the fact he is not an MP, shows that there is no clear successor for Starmer. Angela Rayner would once have been the obvious frontrunner, but her departure over her tax affairs closed that door. Now there is no clear leader, no obvious deputy ready to take charge, and no figure with universal support in the party. The leadership question is wide open, and that in itself is a problem. This situation is extraordinary. We are not talking about a Prime Minister struggling after a decade in power or one floundering after repeated electoral defeats. This is a Prime Minister whose leadership is being questioned just over a year after delivering a landslide victory. The speculation swirling around his replacement is not just about Starmer's personal failures. It may be more than just a leadership crisis. It could mark a fundamental shift in how British politics works. We saw this instability with the Conservatives, who cycled through 5 Prime Ministers in just 7 years. Cameron, May, Johnson, Truss and Sunak. Now, the same volatility may be spreading to Labour, where leaders are no longer secure, even after historic victories. Voters no longer feel bound to the two-party system. The rise of Reform UK, the revival of the Liberal Democrats, the resilience of the Greens and the regional dominance of parties like the SNP and Plaid Cymru all point to a fragmented future. The idea that a single leader can command the overwhelming confidence of the public feels increasingly outdated. Some believe that once Jeremy Corbyn launches his new party, it will peel votes away from the left of Labour. If that happens, Labour could find itself pulled down to the same historically low levels as the Conservatives. Instead of being the dominant force it was just a year ago, Labour risks being dragged into the same crisis of relevance that has already engulfed the Conservatives. Reform UK is currently flying high in the polls. The Liberal Democrats are consistently around 15%, and the Greens are holding steady at about 10%. Politics in the UK is changing, and the landscape is shifting fast. Which party will you be voting for? Let us know in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, comment and subscribe for more breakdowns.